Chris, so tell us, what does this day mean to you?
Well, June 5th, 1981 was the very first day that anything was published about this new disease, even before they even had a name for it, before they ever called it HIV. They didn't know what to call it. And so, this is now being the 40th anniversary. It makes a lot of people, especially people like me that have had HIV for a long time, to really look back on that. And so, for me, I just keep thinking about when I was first diagnosed, how I thought about people with HIV were like. I grew up in a small town, and you would see things on TV. They would always be talking about New York City and San Francisco, and they would always, of course, how the media does, they just show all the people in the street half naked, dance around being crazy, and growing up in a small town, I'm like, that's not me. I'm not like that. And a friend of mine said, hey, let's go get tested, and I kept telling him, I really don't understand what you want to get tested for. We're not like those people on TV. And so we made a date to go get tested. We actually had to drive 3 towns over to find a place to do the testing. And went in and got the test done. They said it's going to be 2 weeks to get your results back. And for me, by chance, that 2 weeks was my birthday. Didn't even think anything about it. And we made a kind of a bet that says no matter what happened, we'd get the results and we'd go get drunk. Day came, we talked about it, plus all of a sudden it was like, oh, it's my birthday, so we're going to go get drunk after my birthday. And so we get there, he goes and gets hers, he said, oh, mine was negative. And I said, well, let me go get mine. And I walked in to get mine, and the doctor handed me an envelope and said, yours was positive, any questions? And I think I just didn't know really what to say. I kind of was in shock in a way, and I said, well, no. And he says, well, you have about 18 months to live, have a nice day. And that was it. That was the only thing he ever said to me. And so I walked out, and I said, okay, let's go, and had the envelope in my hand, and he's like, well, what happened? What did the doctor say? I said, no, let's go. And he goes, no, what did the doctor say? And I said, well, he said mine was positive, let's go. And my friend said, oh, I got to clean my room for my mom, and so I can't go drinking because I got to get all the time. My mom's going to be real upset and everything. So I'll see you later. And he left. And this is somebody I've known throughout my childhood. Never heard from him again. Still to this day. And now when you're asking, like, what does this day mean to me, being it's 4 years later, well, being told on your 19th birthday that you have 18 months to live, and now here I am 36 years later, I really started thinking about all the people that are still here and celebrating those people, but I also think about all the people that were gone. And then I started really thinking about just how ignorant and uneducated my family was. I, of course, not knowing anything about myself, immediately went home and told my mom that, that's what the doctor said. And, my mom just was like, you're not going to talk about it, don't tell anybody. Well, of course, we told my brother and his family, and then I started noticing that when I would go to their house, I could go in the kitchen and fix anything to drink. They would always get it for me, and I started noticing it was always the same glass. And then I wasn't allowed to play wrestle with the kids anymore. And they always used to love it to sit on the couch and snuggle with me while watching TV, and they weren't allowed to do that anymore. And so then it just started being that whole thing about how it was like this shameful thing that nobody wanted to talk about. And I remember the last time that I was over at my brother's house, they had to go outside to get something, and so being nosy and didn't know what it was, I went in the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and when I opened the cabinet, there was a whole plate setting. So plate, bowl, spoon, fork, and glass.
So when you're asking about the other part,
and so it really was
when
that
I was a
shocker
part of
to me
the
that
CCOT,
I was this infectious person that I only had to have my own plate and saucer, and so I just that kind of started that whole thing with my family of not doing that, and then probably about another year and a half of dealing with that and not being able to talk to anybody about it, and then I decided I'm going to leave, And so, seeing everything on TV about California, I decided I was going to move to California. And so I was on my way across country. I took the bus across country, stopped in Las Vegas. Had a friend that I did not know that lived here and had told me he was living here. And so I stopped to visit him and fell in love with Las Vegas and decided I was going to stay here. And 6 months after I decided to stay here, they said they were homesick and went back home. And so here I am. And, my thing was, that was in 1988. And I had gotten kind of sick and was having some really kind of odd things going on, like lung infections and things like that. I went to the doctor and they tested me again. And then they said, it is, did you know that you have HIV? And I said, well, they said something about that before, but I didn't really believe them because they said 18 months, and it's been longer than 18 months. I'm still here. And so that was probably the first time that the doctor then started talking to me about HIV and actually said, do you know what HIV is? And that was Dr. Schroeder at the UMC Wellness Center. And he was like, do you really know what HIV is? And we started having a conversation about it. And so that was where I started getting educated. And then, he one time said to me, you're having a really hard time with just being able to talk about this with people and be around other people that also have HIV. He goes, maybe you should volunteer. And he suggested that I volunteer at AFAN. And so I started volunteering at AFAN, and it was wonderful to be there. It was in the food pantry and the hot lunch program and just all the wonderful stuff that they had there. And then I got to do it for about a year, and then they had somebody that quit, and then they actually offered me a job there. And so then that kind of, what I say, started my career in HIV, because I started working there and ended up becoming the youth HIV prevention specialist for them, and worked there for over 10 years. And then I went to work at the health district and was a disease investigator, and more education, more learning and stuff, and started getting really trained and certified in communicable diseases. And now today, the partnerships manager for HIV and PrEP for Alto Specialty Pharmacy. So, and also am now the president of the Southern Nevada Health Consortium, which is kind of an agency that really gives back to the community and tries to educate, and really looking back on those things of how uneducated people were when I was first diagnosed. And we try to help with that. We try to break down that stigma and really educate the community by doing different educational events around town. So. And in your way, I will be your answer. Speak to me, yeah, my last hope. And I'll say nothing and listen to your love. And I'll say nothing and listen to your love. So teach me, show me all you've got, and in your way, I will be your answer. Speak to me, yeah, my last hope, and I'll say nothing and listen to your love. The Southern Nevada Health Consortium is all about educating the community and trying to break down barriers and break down the stigma associated with HIV. So we like to say that our motto is support, not stigma.